Hello, thank you for being with us today. I am Carolyn Strauss, and I'll be your host for Image Audio Visuals as we present from essentials to extraordinary AV for hybrid events. As we all navigate the changes to the meetings industry, we'll use this time to explore and share what we know about the ins and outs of what makes a successful hybrid meeting. I am joined today by Dave Mueller, the president and founder of Image Audio Visuals, and Simon Meltzer, the VP of Business Development for Image AV. We have so much to cover with you today. Let's start right in by discussing the new normal of planning an event and budgeting for the technology necessary in the hybrid area, what to expect and what to watch out for. There are many options for you to consider. And then we'll discuss how your technology needs change for a hybrid event and conclude with our top 10 list to help you stay in control of your event. After our presentation, we'll be available to answer your questions through the chat functionality on the platform. As all of you know, live events everywhere came to an abrupt stop last spring. Everyone scrambled to find viable virtual options for holding events. Now, virtual events will never replace live events, but some of the advantages of virtual events offer became clear. We've got larger audience sizes, which can equate to more sponsorship revenue, and regional, national, and international attendance is no longer a barrier for your events. Real-time analytics that showed stakeholders data on what viewers watched and which exhibitors they visited and spent time with. The ability to offer continuing education credits for virtual attendees is amazing. The ability to have event sessions be available 24/7 and remain available on demand for months, this also can equate to more sponsorship revenue. Now, moving forward, we believe that hybrid events bring together the best aspects of live and virtual meetings. And every meeting planner should look at the opportunity we have now to create a new model for the future of events. Now, for me as a professional MC host and what I've become known as an explainer-in-chief, the shift I've seen in meetings, especially in the virtual component, is the need for a consistent voice, a point of view, an overarching message for the entire conference, and a level of energy that strings the whole event together and allows attendees to take a mental break between sessions. Think of it like what a late-night talk show host does. Sets up the next segment with humor, grace, and attention to what the audience needs. Now, I've found when working with my meeting planners and my AV team, before any details are cemented, if they can answer these questions, the whole event flows smoothly. Here are the questions. What is the underlying message of the entire conference? What's the feeling you want your audience to have, both the remote and on-site audience? And can you give me a few adjectives to describe what it is that you want your attendees to see, have, do, or be by the time the event is over? Now, answering these questions will help you, your attendees, and your design team create a coherent experience that works for everybody. Let's now move forward with our talk on planning and budgeting with Simon Meltzer. Simon, thank you for letting me be here with you guys.
It is lovely to have you with us. You know what else is lovely? It's the thought of getting back to live events. It's the thought of getting on a plane. It's the thought of getting out of your living room.
I cannot wait to be back in front of an audience. I totally agree with you. So, Simon, what do you feel is the most important key to planning and budgeting for the technology required for hybrid events?
Guess what? That's easy. Understanding that your live audience and your virtual audience are completely different in how you plan your content for your event is critical. You really are producing two separate events. With your virtual audience, you need to think more along the lines of a TV show or a sports broadcast. Every segment needs to be planned, produced, and delivered in a compelling way to retain the focus and attention of your audience. Your virtual audience should have a separate MC, or, to borrow a phrase from our friend Carolyn, an explainer-in-chief to deliver that information, those instructions, and guide them throughout the event. Again, think of the experience like being in a stadium watching a live game, and then think how you watch on TV. The experience is totally different.
So Simon, speaking of totally different, what else do you see that's different in this landscape?
Well, Dave, make sure you really have to make sure that you have a real opening and closing for each day. The length of your sessions needs to be considered. Virtual attendees, they're not going to stay engaged through an 8-hour day of sessions. Keep the total event time per day kind of around 4 hours if possible, and individual presentations at 20 to 25 minutes maximum. We look at analytics all the time and see this is where the drop-off occurs. However, if it's a CE session, you really have to work with your accreditation agency to determine the required length of the session. And remember, folks, be creative, be dynamic in your selection of topics, and of course, presenters.
That is great advice, Simon. So true. So what else do you want everybody to know? What else is take-home worthy?
You know what? Let's talk about the venues. In this post-pandemic age, things have changed a lot. You have to remember you have a freedom of choice. You have the ability to choose your own AV provider. We work with meeting planners all the time to help negotiate key technology provider contract details with the venue before the contract is signed. And there's a bunch of stuff in there. It's vital to eliminate any language in the contract that forces them to use a specific technology provider, or allows essential services like internet. Boy, it's all over the map with pricing. It can be ridiculously expensive if you don't choose the in-house provider or the specific technology partner. Watch for that in your contracts. Eliminate these restrictions. Penalty price hikes and penalty fees. The liaison. The fees to take power. You are in the driver's seat. It's a new world, folks. You have choices. Everything is open to negotiation. Sometimes the in-house technology provider is your best option. But you know what? Nobody wants to be forced into a situation where you don't have a choice. Technology now plays a larger role than ever in determining if your event will be successful. And you need to be certain that your technology provider has a skill set and the desire to meet your expectations. These are the areas we see that typically trip up planners in relation to this and technology.
Let's talk about budget, Simon.
You know what? Everybody wants to know, how much does it cost? You have your live event cost. How much does it cost to add a hybrid element?
Right.
Now, I would start off with saying, yeah, you're in the region of 25% over and above your live production fee. But Dave's going to go into a few other ideas and options that make it a little bit more expensive, but might even make it cheaper.
That is information every meeting planner is thinking about, considering, and needs to know. So you guys have worked through these potential roadblocks. Now we're in a great place to look at all of the needed elements of your event to create the infrastructure, because that's what you all are doing, right? So what you are looking at is to create the infrastructure to create the success. Simon, thank you for your insight. Yeah. Now it's time to move on to a discussion about the technologies used in a hybrid event. Remember to make sure to ask us any questions you have, and we'll answer them at the end of our presentation. For those of you who don't know him, this is Dave Mueller, who'll talk to us about how the in-room technology has changed and the many ways you can deliver content to your virtual audience without breaking the bank. Here you go, Dave.
Thank you, Carolyn. I'm really happy to be here to have the opportunity to share information that every meeting and event planner can use to make their event a success. Now, one of the key additions is the creation of this content that needs to be delivered to the virtual audience. To do this correctly, it's not as simple as just pointing a camera at the stage for the duration of the meeting. As Simon mentioned earlier, The engagement of the virtual audience is a critical metric that must be given weight. Production value plays a very key role in engagement. Now, we have all had experiences over the last year and a half with watching less than content, and it results in horrible engagement. Savvy meeting planners understand that virtual audiences really need and require professionally produced content, delivered as concisely as possible, with audience collaboration tools and additional information delivered through the guidance of a host to maintain that engagement. So, for meetings to be successful, production and content value must be there.
I couldn't agree more, Dave. So what are the ways that content can be delivered during a hybrid event and where does it get delivered to? How do we do this?
Well, Carolyn, we typically see three ways that content is created and delivered for hybrid. So the first, probably most popular way, is to stream all of your rooms live so that your on-site audience and your hybrid audience see the same content exactly at the same time. This can absolutely be the best solution, but it also could be risky. Its success depends on the quality and the durability of the venue's internet connection. It's also by far the most expensive. The second option would be to stream the general session live, but record all of the breakout sessions and publish them on demand to a platform for on-demand viewing the next day. This we consider our Goldilocks solution. It's in the middle. It kind of falls right where it needs to be on the budget scale. Lastly, recording the general session live and maybe having each presenter pre-record their talks, and then all of that information can get pushed to a platform the day at the appropriate time, but then it lives on that platform for on-demand viewing. So of the three, that's the least expensive option. So really, budget is the major driver here. Mm-hmm. You know, if you have multiple concurrent breakout sessions, the cost for internet access in every room can be amazingly cost prohibitive. If you plan to include video of the presenter in your content, cameras and camera operators in each of your session rooms gets really expensive really quickly.
So how do we avoid falling prey to the, static camera? Gosh, I hate that, being on stage and there's one camera playing to me. Do I play to the camera? Do I play to the audience? How do we avoid that to achieve the high production value you need without doubling your budget?
You know, I think if you're planning to have camera shots of presenters in your content, you need to think outside the box a bit. A studio camera and an operator in every room can be replaced, like for instance, with a system that we engineered that's a small camera, a light, a microphone that sits on the podium and captures the video of the presenter as they give their talk. The studio camera operator route can be $2,000 a day.
Per room?
Per room.
Yeah.
For every day. So that gets really expensive quickly. A system like the one I mentioned could really cost a quarter of that.
And another really important thing, Dave, is to remember that our audiences, the attendees through the virtual world, are very used to seeing the presenter's face.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Zoom kind of created that expectation for sure.
And it's really hard to go back to the idea where they're just going to have the screen capture. All you're going to see is the slide and the audio, and people are going to go, where's the people?
Yeah. So the take-home point is this doesn't have to be crazy expensive to the point where you're not quite sure how you're going to make this all work in your budget. I think one of the important things that you can do is challenge your technology provider to create budget-minded solutions for you that create value, but also maintain this production value part that we've been advocating. Another thing to consider maybe is recording all of your sessions on site as they happen, but then posting them to a platform the next day for on-demand viewing. It's a lot cheaper than streaming everything live. And if it's not critical that your two audiences view that content exactly at the same time, this option can be very cost effective. Virtual viewers can still communicate with each other and presenters, but they can do it on their own time. Plus, the added bonus is that your attendees, even your live attendees, can now virtually attend sessions that they weren't able to on site. Other things to note, always use hardwired internet, not Wi-Fi, if you need to stream or upload content from the venue. The wired connections are much more reliable. They're not prone to bandwidth issues like Wi-Fi can be. If you are streaming a remote presenter into your conference, consider putting a video monitor on stage so the explainer-in-chief can maybe have a simulated in-person conversation with your remote presenter before they start the presentation. Always make sure that you have enough camera angles to capture all of the action that happens in the room. One of the things we found that augment studio cameras really nicely are the remote cameras. They're called PTZ cameras, like the one that we're showing now. And those are a great low-cost option to create more looks, more angles for you. Here are a couple other resources to be considered for hybrid events that we haven't touched on yet. Larger screens, more sound coverage might be needed for your event if social distancing rules are still in effect where you are. If you're uploading or streaming content, a streaming or recording technician should be added to your crew. More camera angles might be needed to create that look that you're looking for. A video and audio switcher with a USB or streaming output would be needed for your virtual audience. And probably a good idea to plan a little extra tech table space for this extra gear that we have. So you need to continue to learn about these technologies. And if you have a relationship with an AV provider, have them keep you up to speed.
Wow, Dave, that is so much to consider. And yet we've been working with this now and it keeps evolving. The technology that you guys have created and other people have created is so evolving that this is really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So
Carolyn.
before we end this presentation today, I would like to share with you our top 10 list, our little homage to my hero, Dave Letterman, the top 10 things we want you to consider when you're planning your hybrid events. Number 10.
Number 10, hybrid gives you access to a global audience, more inclusion and more information sharing.
Don't be afraid to pre-record content and push it as live. In the can, content is less susceptible to issues than streamed live content is.
Number 8.
Have a technology contingency plan. If you're streaming content and technical issues arise, God forbid, having a backup content ready to play from a different location is a great idea.
Number 7.
If your event is made available on demand, your event lives on. And so does your sponsorship opportunities. The added revenue from sponsor longevity can be used to minimize or even pay for added technology costs.
Number 6.
Streaming all your content live from your venue to your virtual audience is not the only option you have. Creativity and compromise can save you big bucks.
And number 5.
Number 5, production and content value are critical to your event's success.
4.
Don't be afraid to have some fun with your virtual audience. Gamification, happy hours, cooking demos, musical performances, and social engagement. That's the way to go.
Absolutely. Number 3.
Don't give up your right to select the technology provider that's best for you and your event.
Number 2.
Plan 2 distinct simultaneous events, one for your in-person attendees and one for your virtual attendees. And remember, staff accordingly.
And the number 1 thing we want you to know about creating an amazing hybrid event?
Hire a company that can offer a complete solution, on-site, online, and on demand. That's kind of catchy, isn't it?
I love that. On-site, online, and on demand. That's where we are now. As we conclude our presentation, Don't forget that we are available to answer your questions for the next 10 minutes. We want to thank you so much for your time and attention today. We wish you all the best, and we hope your events are mind-bending for everybody who attends. Cheers.